Story 1: The Gobbling Up Lighthouse. Roosted on spiked precipices battered by persevering waves, an old, disintegrating beacon lingered over the chasm. A gathering of companions, tricked by the excitement of separation, traveled up the misleading way to remain the evening. However, as they sunk into the empty quiet, a chill leaked through the air, more keen than the gnawing wind. As obscurity gulped the precipices, a thick, unnatural haze came in, stifling the perspective on the ocean. A low murmur started to reverberate from the beacon walls, ascending to a discordant tune of murmurs that crawled down the steps. The companions crouched in alarm, hearing each other's breaths become quicker, shallow, until out of nowhere one shout tore as the night progressed, and quiet fell. At the point when the last fragment of twilight disappeared behind the haze, they did as well, their berserk supplications gulped by the dim. Before breakfast, just impressions remained, following into the precipice's edge. The beacon actually stands, a quiet sentinel over the void, its light smothered, trusting that the following guest will guarantee. Story 2. In the dusty corridor of a centuries-old house lay a work of art, wound and stained with age. The picture of a pale lady, her eyes indented at this point savage, maintained eye contact with an unnatural power, her following any individual who thought for even a moment to glance toward her. Visitors murmured regarding hearing weak cries at a horrendous hour and feeling a load upon their chest, similar to cold hands squeezing the air from their lungs. The people who went through hours underneath her look would wake with red, consuming eyes, murmuring pieces of obscure words in their rest. Days after the fact, their bodies would be found, curved and reshaped, faces frozen in a veil of fear, as though they had seen something unspeakable. The house presently stands deserted, its rooms void, put something aside for her full concentration's eyes that appear to yearn for another casualty, drawing the unwary like a snare. Story 3. In a little blurred house in the open country, a family revealed an old doll in the upper room, a remnant from the mother's life as a youngster. It was a particular sight. Its wide eyes and marginally separated lips appeared to be practically exact, as though frozen in a heave. Not long after the doll was set in the little girl's room, bizarre events started to torment the family. Shadows lingered in entryways, faint hints of rearranging reverberated through void rooms, and cold drafts brushed against them with frosty fingers. The girl began mumbling in her rest, talking in a voice not her own, her eyes unfocused, empty. In the evenings that followed, she started scratching the walls, tearing at her bed sheets, making dark red imprints along her arms and legs. One evening, the guardians got up to track down her, remaining close to their bed, grasping the doll, her face bent in a bizarre grin. The family escaped that evening, abandoning the doll, its lustrous eyes flickering in the obscured room, hanging tight for its next close companion. Story 4. The apparition on the road, a barren parkway fixed with twisted skeletal trees. Drivers report seeing a figure remaining in the shadows, thumb expanded, face darkened by the hood of an old, worn-out coat. A transporter, worn from the evening, halted for him, giving the figure access to the taxi. The man's voice was rough, his breath cold, and he talked about places that didn't exist, individuals who had long passed. As they approached a twist in the street, the man turned, his face thin and empty, skin extended tight over his skull, eyes unfilled. The driver flickered, and the man was gone, leaving just the waiting chill of his words. Other people who halted on that street report unusual happenings, hearing weak voices, feeling the heaviness of concealed eyes, and some even disappear, leaving their vehicles unfilled, headlights still on, as though hanging tight for another thing to go along with them in the evening. Story 5. The Disappearing Village. Somewhere down in a failed-to-remember valley lies a town immaculate by time, where giggling once reverberated in the roads, and the smell of new bread consumed the space. Yet one morning, the locals got up to a dull haze that stuck to the ground, scratching out the sky. Their town was gone from all guides, and guests who once came stayed away forever. Frantic for replies, the residents wandered into the close-by woods, expecting to discover a way. Be that as it may, the individuals who entered the trees won't ever arise. The town developed frightfully quiet, shadows extended, and the haze thickened, gobbling up the light. Those abandoned felt a frigid fear sink into their bones, tormented by temporary looks at recognizable appearances in the fog. Countenances of the companions who had vanished presently contorted, empty peered toward, mouths open in quiet shouts. In the long run, the actual town evaporated like it had never existed, a ghost place lost to the haze. Story 6. The Murmuring Well. In the core of a failed-to-remember town stood an old stone well, its dim, dinky water mirroring an unending void. Legends murmured of voices from inside the well, talking in low tones to the people who thought for even a moment to incline close. Right away the voices offered mysteries, commitments of wealth, traces of illegal information. However, as the murmurs developed stronger, they became hazier, compromising, alluding to bad dreams more awful than death. Residents who listened too lengthy became consumed by dreams, seeing their own countenances wound in distress, sinking into the dimness of the well. Before long, they'd become removed, eyes coated, hearing the murmurs even in their rest, until individually they evaporated. The residents, frantic to quiet the well, filled it with stones, its vile sorcery to seal. However, around evening time, the stones developed cold and smooth with water, and weak mumbles reverberation from profound inside, drawing any individual who meanders excessively close. The well actually stands, hanging tight for the individuals who try to uncover its reviled, privileged insights.